Welcome to the Disrupt Your Career podcast, brought to you by Claire Harbour
and Antoine Tirant. We're passionate about helping everyone find fulfillment in their work life.
We believe that big, messy, uncharted career changes are inevitable, and it's up to you to decide.
Will you take control and disrupt, or allow yourself to be disrupted?
We wrote the book about it, and now we share here our conversations with other thinkers in this crucial area.
Settle down and get ready to listen to this dose of wisdom.
So today we are really happy to welcome Alexandre Pachulski. He's a man of multiple interests and talents. He's the co-founder and chief product officer of Talentsoft, the European leader in talent management solutions. He's a university professor of HR, marketing, and innovation, and the author of some fascinating books around artificial intelligence, human singularity, and superpowers. Welcome, Alexandre.
Hello.
Hi, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Let's start with some simple questions about you. We'd love to know about your own career journey, and particularly get you to reflect on your career and what have been the most radical or the most challenging transitions that you've made. Tell us a bit about those and why they were the most challenging and what you've learned from them.
Well, I would say that my career has only been a bunch of disruptions, actually. So I will have plenty to tell you about that. Well, basically, I've started in at Paris Curie. It's a French university in science, because I wanted to go within a cinema school called Louis Lumière.
What a beautiful, evocative name for a cinema school.
Absolutely. And FEMIS also, which was another famous cinema school in Paris. And to do so, I had to add 2 years after my bachelor in science to go through the contest. And while I was preparing this Bac Plus 2, I discovered artificial intelligence. It was in my second year of university. And at the end, I never go through the contest for the cinema school. And I continued with artificial intelligence because I was really fascinated about this science, which was more actually about human sciences, since it was coming from cognitive sciences. How do we process, make decisions, think? And I was fascinated about that. So I go through all the courses, and I went till the PhD. So I've got a PhD in computer science dedicated to artificial intelligence. And after that, I had the choice either to stay at the university and become a searcher, or to do something with this PhD. And the university made the choice for me because they rejected me.
Oh dear.
So, at the very same time.
Every cloud has a silver lining.
Exactly. And that was, another way to look at this disappointment and say, well, it could be an opportunity. And that's really the mojo with my career. It has always been about, can I turn this bad news into an opportunity? I strongly believe in that. And at the very same time where I was rejected from the university, someone offered me the possibility to create my first company. I was 27, and it was an HR consultancy company. So the co-founder was a psychiatrist. He was 20 years old, older than me. And we created this HR consultancy company with this idea that each problem is holistic. It's never about only technology, about organization, only about management. It's a bunch of all that. And so we have started with this very integrated approach, which was kind of new in the year 2000. And we've been pretty successful because our first customer was Apple at the very moment where they have released the iPod. So I witnessed the revolution of Apple computers turning into Apple Inc. And I've worked with Apple for 6 years. Obviously, it brought me a lot of new customers, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Hewlett-Packard, and so on and so on. So I've worked for probably 100 companies And I really learned HR with HR through my company, my first company. And after 7 years, Apple and another customer asked me to help them with their talent management processes, starting with appraisals, annual appraisals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Talentsoft really started. So you asked me about disruptions. It was a disruption to come from the PhD to my very first company about a domain that I didn't know that well, actually, at the time.
Absolutely.
And
You
it was
had
another
skills
disruption.
that suited you, but no knowledge of their industry or the function.
Absolutely. And I was convinced about the interest, and maybe I could have been wrong, but I was positive about the fact that my PhD dedicated to knowledge management, because we didn't talk about talent management at the time, was useful. And believing that it could be useful, it became useful, actually. And if I had a son telling me, I'm 27, I never worked in a company, but I'm going to create an HR consultancy company. Probably I could tell him, are you sure it's a good idea? But it became a good idea because it worked.
Yes.
And so after 7 years, when I started to know what I was doing for real, that's where I had this opportunity to create Talentsoft with 2 partners. And I had to restart again a new job because I became a chief product officer, and it was not about collecting some info and expertise about HR. It was about delivering this expertise through product development. So that was new. So that was another disruption. And it also worked pretty well since Talentsoft now it's 700 employees. We are working through more than 100 countries. We got offices in 15 countries, and we got like 12 million users. So it worked again, luckily.
It did. It really did in a resounding way.
But just a first milestone here is about the fact that I would say that success is a weird combination of opportunities that come where you are ready. You have got the mindset to see this opportunity, detect this opportunity. And that's not that easy, because if you wake up in the morning and everyone knows that, saying, it's going to be a terrible day, not that easy to see opportunity. And so when you got a bad beat, when you got when you've got to face issues, and we know that we've got to face so many issues right now with the COVID situation, creating, developing, designing a skill to be able to detect something and say, maybe I could turn this situation into something positive. I believe that's part of the success, and finding the right people on your road. And once again, recognizing that even if they are very different, even if they've got different journeys, you could do a journey together of 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, you don't know. Like when you marry someone, you never know. It's the same. So success is a weird combination.
It really is. And it definitely is about timing as well as anything else, and having that ability to recognize, and certainly not sticking around in your own echo chamber, surrounded only by people like you. You know, as
Absolutely.
you say, who would have guessed that a psychologist would have come along when you were 27 and said, hey, let's do something about HR? I mean, you know, you cannot possibly have been predicting that in any way at all until
Absolutely.
it happened.
That's why you got to be humble. When people claim, and you know, you got so many books right now about entrepreneurships explaining how beautiful we are, because now I could rewrite the story and explain why I'm so brilliant that I have thought about everything, and on a 20 years journey, and that would be a huge lie. The truth is that at a given time, most of the time you have no clue about the fact that you got a great idea or the dumbest idea possible. You will know afterwards. And so what is interesting, it's more about what we are really responsible of, in a way, is to be aligned between who we are, our personal ambitions and what occurs on this journey. And when you are able to align an opportunity, a situation at least, with who you are, your values, your
Yes.
culture, and your ambitions, that I believe the only thing you are responsible of, because you're not responsible, as you said, of something popping up, someone coming to see me and offering me to create something. You're not responsible of that, but you're responsible of something that many of my colleagues were not maybe ready to do at 27, because I was surrounded, and remember it was in 2000, not today. So entrepreneurship, startups, it wasn't the same. Everyone was telling me that it was stupid to do so. And
especially in France, right?
Especially in France.
Where risk aversion is very high in this area, and still is compared to many.
And when you have got a PhD, and so you're supposed to go somewhere with that.
Yes.
You're not supposed to start from scratch, earning less than 1,000 euros a month. You're not supposed to do that. So it was a kind of risk. And 20 years after, where was the risk? Where is the risk right now to create its own company when you see the situation we are living in? So risk, in a way, has changed.
The nature of risk has shifted dramatically.
Totally.
Definitely.
But at the time, that once again, I say I was not brilliant. I was just looking at the world in a way where I saw something that my very colleagues at this very time detected as a risk and as something stupid to do. So it's extremely important to be more open to opportunities and to be sure that you never see things only one way. And that's exactly the things that we experiment right now with the COVID. You see doctors at the TV everywhere, every day, and they've got the same diplomas, but they are looking at the situation under so many different angles that even the medicine looks like not a science anymore, but more like cartomancy or something that you don't know what it is, with a crystal ball.
Absolutely, with fortune tellers of some kind or other, yes.
But it learns us that even what is supposed to be a science is not maybe so sure. And you got to be able to adopt different angles, different ways to look at things. So once again, you're not responsible of opportunities and timing. You are in charge about being open and look at things under several ways before saying, that's the opportunity of my life, or that's a stupid thing to do. So plenty of takeaways, I would say, in these 20 years.
Absolutely. So just thinking about that a little more, I mean, it's beginning to sound as though one of your own singularities really is this great openness to opportunity and very deep understanding of who you are and what's important and where your values lie, so that when things come along on your horizon, you're open to exploring them in a way that is perhaps enhanced compared to many. Would you say that is your singularity or your superpower? These are terms that you use in your book. Tell me a bit more if you think that is, your absolute superpower, or if there's something else.
It's funny because with time going by, I use less and less the term superpower, because I believe that singularity is maybe more compliant to everyone. And we know that everyone, and probably me, has not a superpower in the sense where you look at Avengers and so on. I would say that
you disappoint me. I thought you were going to get out your cape and show
Unfortunately,
me.
no. And I believe it's more inclusive in a way to talk
course.
about singularity. That's why I adopted this term. I would say that if I have one, it's probably for a lot of reasons because I'm 46, so I start to understand some things about me and the reasons why. It's to be in a way anormally obsessed about what I want to do with my life. It came quite early in my life, just because I was surrounded by people suffering at work, but for real, even if their work wasn't supposed to be so difficult,
Yeah.
but it was all about this harassing management, about these stupid objectives, about everything you hate about basically companies, about work, things that now are illustrated in TV shows on Netflix or HBO or whatever. And so very soon I said to myself, well, I will never go through that. But since I had to work, I had to earn my money because they didn't have money around me and my family. And so I had to create my own way, respecting who I am, and in particular, respecting the promise that I would never go through what my family went through. And my singularity became that at 27, I've been able to say, I won't go there. This could be interesting. This, no way. And you are not supposed to be that clear at 27. And so I was pretty clear about that. And when it became more interesting is that at the very beginning, being an entrepreneur was kind of selfish. It was more in a way about my own freedom, my own way to be free. And it became my very business and my very purpose and my very mission to help everyone on the labor market to find this space, this room, this freedom. And my singularity is to be obsessed. That's why I animate a blog since more than 10 years now, that I'm writing books while I'm working at Talentsoft and being the chief product officer at Talentsoft. So I'm not supposed to get the time to write books.
So how
and
do you make
it?
What is your secret for making that time?
That's my singularity. I'm obsessed. It means that obsessions, they don't stop at 7 p.m. when you stopped working. They don't stop the weekend. They don't stop during your vacation. It doesn't sound like working for me to be in front of my laptops and try to write a book. Like, it doesn't sound like working to work on my blog, on an article, on my podcast, on my YouTube channel. It's just my very purpose. So it's not that I'm a hard worker, because honestly, I believe that I'm pretty good at doing nothing. but the thing is that, Jens, once again, I'm 46. Life is quite short. And when you are facing the kind of pandemic we are facing right now, you realize that if something is important for you, you got to really invest the time.
You better get on with it.
Needed to achieve something.
Absolutely.
And you cannot procrastinate. You cannot say, we will see tomorrow. So my singularity, I would say, is my obsession, because I really don't believe that I'm more talented, or I'm not sure I've got something more except this very obsession. But once everyone starts finding its own obsession, something that really matters, something that makes that even if you spend 16 hours in a day, 5 days in a row about doing something, and it doesn't sound like working, maybe you are on the path finding your singularity. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. And I would just say that everything you say about writing the book after 7 p.m. or being in the midst of writing a blog on the weekends is exactly the way that Antoine and I find ourselves in our work. I think if you went to look at our Slack channel and analyzed what days and what times we're talking to each other, it's definitely not during office hours, or it is, but not by any means in the majority. We're as passionate about what we do, and definitely obsessed. So, we get you, and I think you get us, which is wonderful. And certainly this aspiration for everybody to be having careers, having work where they're in flow, where they don't even notice time going by, and where they're not looking at their watch from 4 p.m. onwards to see when they can go home. That's an aspiration that we have too. And we believe that not only should each of us be looking for that individually in our careers, but we believe very strongly that more companies should be encouraging that. And that's something we have yet to make 100% success of, but it's something that's super important to us.
And you know, Claire, it's interesting because the last Pixar, Soul, is really making the difference also. And it's important to maybe stay 2 minutes on that one. Because in a way, some people that hear us could think, well, what he's talking about is more about his vocation, more than his singularity. And Soul, the last Pixar, really talks about that, the difference between personality and vocation. And it's the same difference than the one between singularity and vocation. My vocation is probably to help other people to find their own singularity. And so what is singularity? It's beyond the vocation. Singularity, I would say, it's very simply what makes you unique in the universe. You know, like in a puzzle, you are a piece of a puzzle and your piece looks like no one else. And that's Brad Pitt, who says that when he accepts a role, reading a scenario, he accepts a role only answering one question, only one. Is someone else on the planet could hold this role? If the answer is yes, he says no.
Fascinating.
Because he considers that someone else could do it. Singularity is about something that you are that no one else is. And when you start accepting your obsessions, your failures, everything that makes you who you are, you really start to be singular. That's why it's interesting, because I answered more about my vocation than my singularity, but my vocation is a part of my singularity. My vocation rhymes with my obsession, and my obsession is part of everything I've lived so far during these 46 years. And singularity is precisely about the fact to say yes or no, to accept this behavior or not, to be able to face your manager, to face some colleagues, to face some situation, and be able to say yes or no, because I want, once again, to be aligned with everything I am. And sometimes people die without having found this singularity, because I don't believe that society helps you in that manner.
Not at all.
I don't believe that the French scholar system doesn't help you.
It certainly does.
Probably the Nordic one, Finland, Denmark, even US, trying many things from theater to sports, going through mathematics, and everything being in a way recognized as something valuable, is very different from the French scholar system, where they tell you if you're not good in mathematics and physics, you're in bad shape. And so I believe that there is a key here to find its own singularity. It's to be surrounded by people that will give you some confidence, and that will be, in a way, a warming environment. It's impossible, according to me, to find its own singularity if you are not surrounded by people that are ready to hear something different, a risk you are able to take, something you are believing in that is very different from what they believe. And if you're surrounded by open-minded people that will be able to hear what you got to say, you give you your own chance to find your singularity. If you go in a very normative environment and people that don't give you the confidence and put their trust in you to do something different, according to me, it's almost impossible to succeed. So obviously we all know that when you raise children, but once again, you're not responsible of opportunities and timing, you are responsible of who you are surrounded by. And it's extremely important and totally related to the singularity and the career you are able to follow or not.
Absolutely. All those pieces of research about being influenced by the 5 closest people to you and everything else, it's about getting out of the echo chamber and making sure that each of us has enough external influence and challenge to our own thinking, that we find our own unique thinking rather than that we've just been printed on by other people. That's absolutely fascinating. And thank you so much for making the reference to Brad Pitt. We know that you make a lot of references to popular culture. And I think that
Yes.
that particular teaching point from Brad is absolutely stunning. Is there anything else that you've discovered recently that could teach our listeners something about talent or career management beyond Brad's wonderful thinking, which of course he's very privileged to have, right?
Yes.
There could be some out of work actors listening to this thinking, I'm not sure I would apply the thinking in exactly the same way, but certainly it's something to aspire to. Tell me what else has come up that's made you really stop and think recently in this area.
Obviously, the COVID situation has got a strong impact on talent management, because we see that on a personal layer. When you face pandemics the way we face it right now, obviously it really deeply shakes your beliefs, the reasons why you did this or that, and you kind of reread your own life, your own choices. And dealing with talent management, it opens something very interesting here about risk. I believe that now, since we got to basically face a situation we've never faced before, obviously there have been pandemics by the past, but not in the same time that globalization, where the planet is in the shape it is right now, and so on and so on. So it's a kind of unique situation. And what it says about talent management is that you can be positive right now that no one will save the world alone. You saw that with the Justice League movie that was a failure, by the way, of the Warner. But this DC Comics, they had this punchline saying, "You won't save the world alone." And it was about Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. So if they can't, probably we can't.
Yes, that's a reasonable conclusion.
And so it means that talent management now is more than ever a sport game. It's a collective game. It's a teamwork game. It's more about, the Moneyball movie, to come back to Brad Pitt again, where the name of the game is not to hire great stars, great profiles, key talents. It's about designing a team, joining, assembling people one with another, that will create some magic because they are assembled one with another. It's not about someone that is the very someone you need. It's about someone that is going to complete the puzzle I was talking about before. And the name of the game of the talent management in that frame is very different. I'm the owner, of an HRIS vendor. I can tell you what my customers ask me. They ask me about managing a key talent, finding a key talent, giving the right compensation to the key talent, pushing the right learning material to the key talent, but it's all about individuals.
Yes.
It's very rarely about teams. And now, 2021 and the decade to come is all about teams. Obviously, it's not by chance that Slack, Teams know such a success, because it's more about the conversation you create. It's more about sharing your objectives. It's more about creating an alchemy within a team that makes innovation appear, that brings success. So I would invite everyone thinking about talent manager, whether it is manager or HR or CEOs or talents themselves, to think more in terms of where should I go to complete a team, to join someone, rather than thinking, what should I develop as superpowers to be finally recognized and promoted? And no, that's not the way. And that's why it's so important to think in terms of culture, values, behaviors, and so to go to teams or companies or organizations that are compliant with that. Otherwise, there is a few chances only that you can be successful and fulfilled, because you won't match with your own values, with the behaviors. And so you got to think more in terms of hosting, who will be able to host everything that matters to me, rather than where could I deliver my superpowers. Talent is not, doesn't exist in itself. It only exists where talent meets conditions, environments, people, values, culture, timing. So I believe that now it forces humility. You are not the one that will save the company, that will save your team, that will save the. Be humble. Being humble meaning also admitting that you can do plenty of mistakes. Good news, everyone does every day now.
Oh yeah.
Every day. So you will be part of that, but you could do better than maybe your neighbor if you are more keen on recognizing it was a mistake, monitoring that, and redoing something different. And so agility, humility are really, according to me, the real talents right now, because expertise are important. But once again, we see that every day, experts coming at the TV and the radio, and okay, but if it's one expertise against against another, it's useless. So it's more about how can we combine all that and bring something different, because we are assembling our wheels, our talents, our expertise. So this is the name of the game, dealing with talent management. And it's honestly, Claire, very different from 10 years ago.
One of the things that we're really obsessed about, coming back to the idea of obsessions, is how much companies tend to miss out on great talent, because the greatest talent that they might be recruiting is actually way out of the box. You know, they've written a job description which is about checking boxes, where they're copying and pasting and cloning. And this must come up again and again in the work that you do with your clients, however much it's driven by AI as opposed to human conversations. But we've got a question for you, which is about, first of all, how do you reconcile the tension between these two ideas? And you get obviously to see a lot of companies and talent practices, and we wonder which companies have impressed you most in terms of helping individuals find themselves and find that unique place, that unique jigsaw puzzle piece that allows them to be fulfilled and contribute to an absolute maximum.
This one is interesting because in a way there is a path to conduct change. There will be no revolution where companies will say, we don't need positions anymore. Let's forget that. It won't happen. What is happening right now is the fact that companies really understand or start understanding that a position is a kind of entry door. This is the door that I'm going to take to join the company. But depending on who is going to go through this door, the position is going to behave very differently. So what matters more than position and prerequisites and objectives attached to this position is the combination of the someone with the position that will create different activities, different projects. And on a given position, depending on who is going to occupy this position, the projects the person is going to be responsible of can vary a lot. And that's interesting because, and that's what we do at Talentsoft, when you start managing projects and not only positions, you start to recognize and to host atypical profiles. Atypical meaning they don't match exactly with what you expect, but because they are who they are, because they have gone through these weird experiences, they will bring something to the position and they will be able to take in charge projects that someone more typical wouldn't have been able to hold. And that starts really and happens in company right now. I'm thinking about the HRD of Jumbo, which is a huge retailer globally, but with an HQ in the Netherlands. I'm thinking about companies like Flying Tiger. I'm thinking about companies in France. In fact, I could talk about Française des Jeux, which is a small company, but that allowed something interesting. They display projects more than positions.
Fascinating.
And they authorized people to push for their own projects and say, what kind of project would you be interested in? And that totally changed the name of the game, because it's not about, okay, let's tick the boxes that top down the company creates. It's more about suggest the tick boxing you would like, depending on the project you want to be in charge of. And it's very different. It's more a bottom-up approach. It's more a free will approach. Obviously, the project you push have got to meet somewhere a strategy, an organization. So it's not about being free to do whatever you want. It's not the free time, mostly a lie in the Silicon Valley, because, okay, Google has created a Gmail with free time, but what they didn't say is that most of the time, the free time, it was on the Saturday.
Absolutely.
It was not necessarily.
It's a little too beautiful as a story and slightly less so as a reality.
So we got to be cautious about that. Freedom can happen within companies when suggestions, recommendations meets needs. And if people are clever enough to push for some projects that obviously are related to a need and that they have got a good understanding on these needs or this strategy, it can happen. And so the company I mentioned and many others, they are in this mindset where they really offer the freedom to their employees to push for their own recommendations. And even at Talentsoft, we have witnessed the fact that when you ask a computer engineer, what would you do that we haven't thought about, but there is no specification, there is no product manager that has designed something specific, but you, as a computer engineer, in your very position, what would you do? Most of the time, when you, in a way, free creativity, it's wonderful, because you got in one end the people that they don't want this kind of freedom and they have no idea, and it's okay. Not everyone is supposed to be creative, entrepreneur, and whatever you want. Some people, they want to execute, and it's okay to execute. It's not, it could be sometimes people could be ashamed just to be extremely good executant, but you need people to execute, but you also need people to free creativity and do things that you wouldn't have thought about. That Steve Jobs were saying is, if you hire clever people, it's not for you telling them what they should do, it's for them telling you what you should do. That's the point. So you got to create this space. And so I really honestly start seeing that more often and often. And once again, because now people, they are forced to listen to others in the situation we are meeting right now, because they don't have a clue about what they should do or not, actually.
So the sorts of examples you've alluded to are fascinating and absolutely, fit in with the way we think about careers being as flexible as possible and as initiative driven as possible by individuals. And a lot of what you're talking about seems to hinge as much on human-to-human dialogue as it does on anything else. What about from the AI side? In what ways can AI support the quest to help individuals navigate big career changes themselves, whether inside a company or beyond and outside?
This is really the heart of my last book, Génération IA, AI Generation, where I explained that you got two AI. You got the AI basically that automate what we do today, and the aim is really to replace partially or totally some activities held by human beings because AI could do it, and maybe it could do it cheaper, faster. I'm not fascinated about this AI, because we also know that the issue with automation in general, when you leverage technology to automate, if you do something stupid, it will be more efficiently stupid. I'm more interested about transformation. And there is a level of transformation which is huge about AI. And that's really what I expose in my book, is that I believe that AI could open possibilities to people at work they wouldn't have been able to grab otherwise. I will give you 2 or 3 illustrations. Coming back to career, maybe, Claire, you never thought that you could become this or this. We see that most of the time accountants actually could become great cybersecurity experts, because when you look at, you match skills in both positions, they've got plenty in common. But I can swear that no one in this world, as an accountant, would say, "Oh, I'm going to become a cybersecurity expert because there is so much in common between both positions." No, because psychologically, you say it's impossible for me. So there are 2 objectives around AI, coming back to labor market, work, careers. First, it's to claim, yes, you can. Obama style. Yes, you can. Yeah. Because it's very similar. Second one will be to help creating a path, a way to make it happen. Because even if an AI push an incredibly good suggestions, it's like you got 2 hours in front of you. It's 9 p.m. You want to be at bed at 11, and Netflix is pushing you a wonderful recommendation. This is the movie of your life. You never saw it. Great, except that it's a 4 hours movie. So it doesn't match with your situation. And it's the same with AI. You can push all the recommendations that you want. Human beings, they are not in the conditions to grab this opportunity and say, "Oh, of course, why I didn't think about that sooner. Let's go for it." No. Most of the people, they would say, "I never thought about that, so it's probably impossible." So AI rhymes with popping new opportunities and helping creating a way to make it happen. And it's only when the 2 conditions will be gathered that it will be plenty useful. So it rhymes with learning. Can you create learning paths that will really help people to develop the skills and the confidence in themselves they will need? It rhymes with embedding AI in strategic committees, C-level, because you also got to create these opportunities at an organizational level. And so if AI pushes you great jobs, but these jobs don't exist, the career path, they don't exist. So you got also to convince the C-level. Yeah. And so it's about joining the management committee, basically, and trying to elaborate scenarios. Is it a fantasy? Is it possible? It's possible. Obviously, under certain conditions. First, have you got enough data to be able to create scenarios that could be relevant? Are there some biases in the data? Because if it's only your data, the risk with AI is that it reproduces what has ever happened in your company. So you should open data to an industry, for instance, to a country, because you also got to take into account cultural matter. So the choice of the data is key. The way you educate AI with the intent that you are going to push, with the people that are going to train an AI, the way you train a sport guy or sport girl to its discipline is key. And the monitoring of the AI to be sure that the way it works is aligned with the first intent is key. So as you can see, I believe that there is really a way for AI to be far more useful than it is today, and at least being more in a transformation layer than an automation layer. But today, are these conditions really gathered within companies? I'm not that sure. So plenty of possibilities here, but a lot of work to do before, according to me. So when a vendor, and that's not what Talentsoft is saying, claims, okay, buy my AI and it's going to push you the profiles you need, like that, it's a lie, because it's technically impossible.
Fascinating. Alexandre, I feel we could carry on talking for hours, but I know that our audience will at some point tire of hearing.
Absolutely, and I hope they don't sleep already.
We're passionate about. So who knows, maybe we'll get you back another time, but it has been an absolute wonderful journey talking about these things today with you. I feel like we've got a lot to talk about offline, having been, you know, the one of the pair, Antoine and Claire, who didn't know you before. I feel that we've got much to discuss beyond this, which is always a wonderful feeling. But I just want to take a moment to thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and your ideas and your originality with our listeners today. I really hope that some of your books are going to start appearing in English as well as French. Is there any chance of that happening?
Unique is translated. It's just that Talentsoft has translated it, and so we are able to even for free you can download it. So we will manage to do something around that, Claire, if you want, because I've done that before already. So let's talk offline, and
let's absolutely talk offline about that. So you know, for the audience, you can find it in French, and you may be able to find it in English, and we may be able to facilitate that for you. But either way, it's been absolutely a pleasure having you here with us today, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you very much, Claire. It was great to spend this moment with you, and I hope it will be interesting for the audience.
It absolutely will.
We hope you enjoyed hearing from this month's guest as much as we did.
Do go and check out our work on disrupt-your-career.com and come back soon. Thank you.